Good evening. Last video was very, very early this morning, and now it is very late at night. And I'm working on a different song, and one of my requests from the producer was to play some fills in verse 2. Now, I've talked about this a little bit, but it's worth repeating and going over again, because this is really hard for guitar players to figure out. I remember hearing records where somebody was filling, some band member was filling in the verse, and it was just so perfect. Like the way they placed their notes, their phrases, it didn't distract from the vocal. It was never on top of the vocal, but even the things that they played would add to the vocal. It's like, how are they doing that? Like whatever they're playing is making what the singer is singing more compelling. And for the longest time, I couldn't figure that out, like how to do it. I could recognize it when I heard it, but I had no idea how to actually do that myself. And so over the years and getting into sessions and being a sideman, I realized that my sense of phrasing needs to not be the same as the singer. That's harder to do than it sounds, because when you're playing a song or you're listening to it, part of the groove and part of what you're getting into and what you're being a part of is the vocals, right? You're listening to the way they phrase, and oftentimes that's a hook and it's rhythmic, and you kind of get you get stuck in it. So when it's your turn to step out, you start stepping out in all the same places as the vocal, and that's completely wrong, and that's not at all what you're supposed to do, and that's a battle you'll lose every time. You certainly won't get hired anymore by playing right on top of the vocal. So you have to train yourself to dissociate from the vocalist's phrasing and to speak in their breaths, if that makes sense. Sometimes I get asked to do this on a song where, man, there's almost no breaths, and there's like room for me to go. I mean, just something really, really quick, in and out. And, oftentimes if the verse is kind of short and there's a bunch of little spots, gaps, for you to play in, or if there's a lot of them but they're just really small, the producer's not going to use everything that you did. More often than not, I get asked to play in verse 2, do some fills in verse 2. And what they mean by that is play in every single hole. Let's get a couple takes of it, and I will sort it out later. That's what the producer means. Which is crazy to me that we're making music like that. And oftentimes they stick with whatever the final thing is that I give them. But sometimes, you work for these producers who are really quick in Pro Tools, and they go through and edit everything in the song after the fact. So it's kind of, it's different than how making records used to be. Before, you rehearsed. You had weeks of production rehearsals. You'd get the band super tight, and then you'd go in and do a take, because you're playing to tape, and it's hard to punch in, and if there's any editing to be done, that was like a maddening process, insanely difficult. Now, editing and rearranging the entire song can be done with the click of a mouse. I mean, you're highlighting a section, Control C, or delete. You put it in a different spot, Control V. They can completely rearrange what you did, or just lock you to the grid in a way that you wouldn't naturally, do, that isn't really human to be so locked. But this music is so precise, it's so on the grid. That's kind of what we say in Nashville. The grid being the beats and where they land. And in Pro Tools, you literally have a grid. You can set it to quarter notes, so you have, you know, lines that are quarter notes, and you can take a section and drag it a quarter note over, or you can go all the way down to 30 seconds. You can do triplets. I mean, they can take a phrase that you played a solo on. Say you played a solo on a song, they can take one of your phrases that you started on the downbeat of the bar, and they can slide it and make that the and of two. Like it starts on the and of two instead of the downbeat. And there's one really big producer that is notorious for this, and you know, he creates really cool stuff, but he takes solos and chops them and turns them completely inside out and puts something together that is really exciting. Like that's what he's going for. He's going for an excitement thing. But the guitar player that was there didn't play that. They played those licks, but not in that arrangement, or not, they didn't stop in that spot that he cut them off at, you know, or chopped or flew or whatever. So you end up with these really unorthodox sounding guitar solos. And I think his motivation is he's going for something new and trying to make something that's exciting to him. Honestly, a lot of producers here are looking for an involuntary emotional response to what you're playing. So sometimes they get that by rearranging what you play after the fact, which is crazy. It's a whole new world. So anyway, I have a song here. I've got the second verse to play some fills in. I don't think there's a ton of space in the vocal, but I'm going to take a couple passes at it and see where we land. I'm going to bring a bunch of my other tracks down so they're not in the way. Okay, so let's see what happens. Here's verse 2. I hear some things from time to time. Maybe it's just me moving on. Try to pretend what it's like. The story ends, it's got two sides. Yeah, I'm getting on down. I still drive by places we went, but I ain't. I started to do it. I kept playing, and then he was picking up in the vocal. It was all great until then, you know. I'm just kind of waiting for a rest, or when I hear that the end of his phrase is coming, then I do something, and I'm connecting the dots, really. I mean, that's what you're doing. You're connecting the dots between the vocal. So let's listen to what I have so far. I like the front part of it. Some things from time to time. Maybe it's just me moving on. Try to pretend what it's like. The story ends, it's got two sides. Yeah, I'm getting on down. I still drive by places. That's where you went wrong. So, let's see here. I needed to just be out right there and just let it hang, because his phrase starts again. It's got two sides. Let's pick it up right there. It's got two sides. And a little early. It's got two sides. So it's got two sides. Yeah, I'm on the and of one. It's got two sides. Yeah, I'm getting on down. I still drive by places we went, but I ain't been inside. I just needed some space to find anything new in this time. Okay, so I feel better about the first part of that. Let's listen and see if there's any more conflicts, or if it sounds like I'm wandering around. You never want to sound like you're wandering around the room. So really, this all comes down to listening. It's got two sides. Okay, so he took a breath later than where I started. And I'm going to start from the same spot, and I'm still playing in the holes of the vocal, even though he's shrunk them down. I'm still putting something there, and it's still kind of hooking. It still works to my ear, but not when I get to the end of that. It's got two sides. Yeah, I'm getting on fine. I still drive by places we went, but I ain't been inside. I just needed some space to find anything new this time. Yeah, see, I got stuck in my own pattern of starting in the same spot on the bar, but he was rolling through and didn't take his breath until a couple beats later, so I need to wait. I gotta fix that spot. Yeah, he's off. He's singing until beat 3 of that measure, and I started playing right into the downbeat, like really on beat 4, coming into beat 4 of the previous measure. So let's let me give myself some more pre-roll, because I still want to be connected to my last phrase. There, I need to not play over his other phrase, because he even comes down a bit. Okay, that works. I want to see if there's anything more exciting I can do here. I'm just going to start from the top of the verse again and listen to my fills. I hear some things from time to time. Maybe it's just me holding on. Try to pretend what it's like. The story ends, it's got two sides. Yeah, I'm getting on fine. I still drive by places we went, but I ain't been inside. I just needed some space to find anything new in this time. I ain't gonna lie, so he's still singing. It's just really low. He's kind of coming down and then ramping up into the chorus. So I don't think there's room for another fill at the end of that, but I can build with the other guitars on the last bar. Cool. So there, I mean, even if you mute the vocal, my fills are all connected. I'll just completely mute the vocal, and then this becomes the melody of the verse, kind of. Listen. I hear some things from time. And I did not mute the vocal. Where is it? There we go. So those phrases are still all connected to each other. Like, they pick up where the other left off. So I'm doing the exact same thing as the vocal as a negative, if that makes sense. The vocal is singing all these phrases that are connected, taking breaths in between. While I'm playing all these phrases that are connected, taking breaths in between, my breaths are the vocal's phrases. The vocal's phrases are my breaths. So those are the rules I play by. Again, music, I mean, you'll find a million counter examples of things, that break the rules or whatever. But to me, this is what producers want to hear. In my experience, it is what they want to hear when they ask me to play some fills in the verse. So I'm done with this song, and I'm really tired. I'm gonna go to bed. See y'all.